Welcome to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. My name is Donna M. Banks, and I am your host. Our guests tonight are Janis F. Kearney, co-founder Read.Write.Share Writers Weekend, and the 2022 South Stories Anthology, Janet Uchendu, Josephine Rumph, and Kimberly Forga. Janet, Josephine, and Kimberly are three of the outstanding elite 20 women who were chosen to be part of the 2022 South Stories Anthology, Surviving and Learning from Life's Storms. Welcome, ladies, to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. I finally got it right. Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation is sponsored by Eileen's Diamonds LLC, brought to you by the Fresh Book Festival, which will be held in the beautiful city of Daytona Beach on 23, 24, 25 February in 2023. Please join us. Registration is open, and you can register at www.freshbookfestivals.net. If you have any questions for the ladies, please leave them in the chat room. And this conversation is finally being recorded. Thank you, ladies, for being here. And please take a moment to give our audience a brief background. We'll start with you, Janis.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Donna, very much for inviting us. I'm so happy to be here. So happy to see my compadres with the Southern Anthology, Janet, Kimberly, Josephine, and also Geraldine. Geraldine is one of our authors. But we've been doing Read.Write.Share now for 6 years, and we are very excited about this. This is the 5th year for our anthology. So we're excited about it. I'm a writer. I have another nonprofit called the Celebrate Maya Project. My passion is literacy and writing and children.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, we will have Janet.
Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Janet Uchendu. Uchendu, yes. And thank you, Donna, for having us. Thank you to Janis. I consider her a mentor. And I'm a 67-year-old writer, new to writing, sort of. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was born, well, not born, but I was raised in Eudora, Arkansas, and I've been in Little Rock for the past 40 years. I'm just happy to be here.
40 years, you've never strayed from Little Rock?
Actually, I have. When I graduated from high school in Eudora, I went to Denver, Colorado. I've lived in Grand Forks, North Dakota, on the Air Force Base. Never seen so much snow in my life. But I made my way back to Arkansas because Arkansas is home.
Thank you very much. Josephine, you're next.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Josephine Rumph. Thank you again, Donna, for this invitation. I'm so excited you're a part of what a wonderful evening I know this will be. I'm from a small town in southeast Alabama called Clayton. It's in the middle of nowhere, somewhere near Eudora, Arkansas, probably.
Yes.
Mama County knows where it is.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, but now I live in the big old city of Birmingham, Alabama. So I moved up a little bit by way of Little Rock, Arkansas. I spent about 10 years there. And I'm excited to be a part of this process. And I'm so happy that Janis allowed me to be a part of the Southern Anthology a second time. So I'm waiting on year number 3 now. So it's great to be here. Just released my first book earlier this year. And I'm working on a ton of other projects, and I hope that soon we'll see book number 2.
Excellent. And Kimberly.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again, Ms. Banks, for having me tonight to join. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas. This is where I call home. My dad was military, so I grew up in Europe, different countries there. My passion is diversity. I'm a multi-ethnic author, so diversity, inclusion, literacy, and children are a very deep, special passion of mine to share. I have a few books out, 2 children's books that I have been a part of, as well as one that I created, authored, and illustrated, and then a few other books that I've either written the foreword to or helped as far as getting the book out there. And I'm currently working and wrapping up a historical book that should be out within the next 2 weeks, and then 2 other books that are on the back burner waiting to get out there too.
Yay.
You're busy, yeah.
Very, yes. Blessed.
There's this thing called 7 degrees to Kevin Bacon, right? So I want to know what your degree is to Janis, because we've all met her in different ways. So Kimberly, how did you actually meet Janis?
It was actually it was a web search. Just, I had had an event that took place that I wrote about briefly for this anthology. I was just sitting in my home alone. Many don't know, but just less than a little over a year ago, I was on the ventilator due to COVID. And I woke up on the vent, had no idea what was going on, where I was, or even why I was on the ventilator. I actually thought I'd been in a car wreck, and they let me know that I'd been found unresponsive, and in a way to save my life, they put me on the ventilator. So once that was done, we don't really know the background about people that are on life support. So I went home, and, we talked briefly about how I left a relationship and left everything. And the time that I was in the hospital, my home was broken into by that individual, and a 2-story house, 3-bedroom, everything that I had purchased on my own, starting fresh, was gone, including my clothes. So I came out the hospital. I had no furniture, no bed, no clothes, nothing, no shoes. I had what I had on at the hospital. So that devastation, and being up late at night at 3 in the morning and writing, I was writing my story. I was just writing. I didn't have a goal for the piece. I was just writing about this storm, and literally just Googling on Google came Miss Janis's WOW program in the anthology. And I immediately remember I emailed her and was like, when can we submit it? And she's like, oh, well, it doesn't even opened yet. But but I immediately knew then, and that gave me the inspiration to go ahead and finish the piece. And that's how I met her. And I'm very grateful.
Yes, indeed. Josephine?
Oh, well, I was fresh out of college looking for a career opportunity, green as green could be. And somewhere, somehow, Janis' business card ended up in my hands. So I applied for a job at the state press. She took a chance on me. And that was, I think, in the late, not the dateless Janis, but in the late 1980s. So it's been a wonderful 30 years of getting to know her and working with her. And then coming back after about 20 years break in between working with her. So it's been a great experience just to know her and learn from her and share this opportunity with her.
And she became a great editor. You became a really wonderful editor, Josephine.
Thank you.
And Janet?
Okay, I met Janis in, I believe, November of 2016. I had attended the CB Wright Women's Writers Conference at UCA in Conway, Arkansas. And she was there, and somebody just introduced me to her. I didn't really know her, but somebody introduced me. And then I just kind of went away. I didn't have any contact with her, but I think I started stalking her kind of after that. And I would, not intentionally, but she gave these writing workshops. And I remember I followed her to Helena, Arkansas to attend one of her writing workshops. And we were writing on a topic, and I wrote the first sentence and just dissolved. I mean, I just fell apart, it broke me open somehow. And I just knew I had to write. So then I started attending every writer's workshop that she gave. And when COVID hit, we did it on Zoom a lot.
Right.
And she just encouraged me to write, because I didn't consider myself a writer. I was new. I was 64, 65 years old, and, doing all of the imposter syndrome stuff. Who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? Trying to be a writer, blah, blah, blah. I went through all of that. And she just simply encouraged me to write. She said, you're good, you're good. So from there, I've been trying to be good.
So Ms. Taylor, I know you're not part of the conversation tonight, but if you take yourself off of mute, just let us know how you met Janis. Geraldine?
Yes, good evening, everybody. And it's good to meet all of you. Good to see you, Janis. And my maiden name is Kearney. So
okay.
So we're cousins, and my father and she are first cousins. But in the late 80s, like Josephine. I was at Philander Smith College taking a public relations class, and my instructor encouraged me to reach out for a volunteer opportunity, which Janis gave me. And she may not remember. It was brief, but she had a photographer, and I went to a reggae concert with him and did a caption for a photo he did. It was so long ago. I was doing, oh gosh, it's been a minute, but it was on a professional and really a freelance writing basis. I began doing freelance writing after my encounter where Janis gave me the opportunity to do a little bit of writing for that one episode for the state press. So went away, got married, came back home, and won't get into the story, but I registered for that writer's workshop where I was a part of that first anthology. So Janis has been a wonderful encourager. That is something I think that she continues to do. And I just love hearing more about what she's into, about her 501c3, and just happy to be here. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. And so, Janis, you are on the hot seat, and we want we want you to tell us about the Southern Anthology, how it began, and how excited you are about. It's the 5th edition, is that correct?
This is the 5th edition of the anthology, right? Yes, we're into the 6th year of the Read.Write.Share weekend, but this is the 5th edition of the anthology which actually got started in 2016, I think. And Geraldine was actually part of a workshop that we did in 2015 called Writing Our Lives. And we did that for about a year, I think. And at the end of that workshop, each one of the participants wrote a story and shared it with the audience, which Geraldine did a great job, but I think a lot of people didn't know that they could get up in front of people and tell their stories. It's a hard thing. It really is if you haven't done it before. So that's kind of how we decided, okay, these are great stories. People need to share their stories, and the anthology is a great way to collect stories and let people become writers, as they're practicing. They actually become published authors. And it's been wonderful because we always try to find a way to bring the writers together after the anthology is done, let them do readings and share their stories with the rest of the world. And it's just been a great, great opportunity of learning. I'm learning right along with them, and they're learning about each other. So this has been great.
So tell me, Janis, how is this anthology, the 5th edition, different than the first 4?
This one, I think it's different only because the timing is different because of what we've gone through over the last 2 years. And I just really believe that we will have some stories that will be gut-wrenching, that will be really touching, that will probably be hard to tell by the writers, but they're all courageous writers, so I know that they'll share it. So I think the difference is what has happened over the last 2 years.
And you tell me that possibly it will be published by December?
Well, it definitely won't. It definitely won't be published by December.
Okay.
It's usually published the next year. It's usually early the next year before it's published. So it will be probably February or March at the earliest that it will be published.
Yeah, that's
hopefully
a lot.
It will be published by the time that we have our April event, our April weekend.
Okay, very good. And so, ladies, I want you to talk about your journeys, and I'm going to take us back to gallery. I want you to talk about your journeys and then talk about what you want, why you wanted to be a part of the 5th edition. So I want to talk about why you became writers, right? Janet gave us a little story about her. but what was it that gave you the impetus to writing is such a cathartic thing, but it's very judgmental also. So when you put yourself out there to be judged by millions and millions of people, right? Hundreds of people, why would you do that? And why did you want to be a part of the fifth edition? And I'll start with you, Kim.
Thank you. I started writing years ago. And for me, it was very therapeutic. It was a way to express my feelings with words and to be able to really self-soothe, because I had children and a life, career, and plenty of obstacles. I also had PTSD from childhood trauma. And so there's just a lot on me. And it always resonated with me, the saying about, to check on your strong friends. And although it may look easy, it doesn't mean that the baggage isn't heavy, that it's not hard to bear. For me, at this point, sharing my story, reading what the requirements were and what Miss Janis was looking for, it helped me to understand that to kind of get out of my hole that I was in. Because I had been in the hospital, my job held my position for me. And I had worked very hard to get there and was making really good money. And like I said, I'd started from scratch all over again and had an established home for my children and I, and a respectable career. My job held my job for me. And I was in the hospital for about 2 months, but it was after they had found out that I had lost my voice. I was a dispatcher. I came with 911 dispatching experience, but I was actually a dispatcher for a utility company. And I was the front person for getting our men home in the storms because they would go out there when it's storming and climb the poles and restore electricity. When they found out that I couldn't speak, my voice was painful. My larynx was bruised. I could maybe slightly whisper at the most. People couldn't understand me. On top of that, I couldn't walk. I couldn't feed myself. And then I was a bigger person. So it's difficult. It takes 2 to 3 people to help move me. And so once my job found out that I couldn't talk, and I was willing to show up in a wheelchair on oxygen, they went ahead and let me go. And that was devastating, because on top of that, having found out that the clothes that I had on me was all I had, it was like, where do you go? And then what was so terrible, my job was very cooperative, and they were saying that, this isn't your fault. We just took a hit with your loss, and the dispatching team needed an additional person. And so they didn't fight unemployment. But then a problem again, here we are in the pandemic, unemployment was 8-9 months behind. So I'm having to find shelter. I'm also needing medical assistance. I'm needing therapists to come and help me. I didn't even know there were so many types of therapy, occupational, physical. I still lose my breath to this day because I'm still working on getting that strength. And so I felt like I was repeating a part of my childhood, a cycle where I was adopted as a child and raised in a very physically abusive household. And so I just felt, once again, I was just stripped of everything, and I felt exposed. So writing wasn't my first time to be putting myself in a moment of exposure. When I saw that Miss Janis was looking for people to share their stories, their storms, I realized, and it gave me hope that, you know what, if she's calling all people that are going through a storm to come forward, then my story can't be the only one out there. I can't be the only one going through this level of sadness and depression. And it just, when you're in a moment of depression, time doesn't exist. So you can wake up, and before you know it, it's nighttime. And before you know it, it's the next day, morning. And small things like, brushing your teeth is a huge task. And I remember, some people knew what it was going on, and I posted on social media. I was like, well, today I brushed my teeth and took a shower. That's it. And it was so many people that had feedback on that, that everybody was going through something. We've all been affected by this pandemic. It was something we've heard about, but no one expected to be, involved and to be afraid to even get on social media because you didn't know who would have succumbed to it. And there were parts of me that almost had wished I had, because I had survivor's remorse. Why was I able to live and survive? And there were people that were in better shape and probably better people than me that didn't make it, young teenagers and young adults and other mothers and stuff. Why me? So sharing my story, I wanted to give people hope that sometimes we just have to go ahead and unsubscribe to the past altogether and start fresh, no matter how many times we have to.
So when did you know that you also could draw?
Oh, I've been drawing since I was in the second grade. I was doing a lot of contests and writing from second grade on. It was something that I looked forward to and competed with. And, the first book I illustrated, it somewhat was an accident. A friend of mine knew that I was a illustrator, and he was a professor that happened to know someone that needed an illustrator. And next thing you know, I have a book that's been illustrated. And I thought, you know what? I should write a book of my own and illustrate it. So there you go.
So you submitted the selection and then you got the email. How did that feel?
It just felt like an answer. It was encouragement because it meant that I had completed this assignment successfully and that someone recognized what I wanted to share. And it wasn't just a typical story, if something happened to me and I'm down, but that I actually fulfilled the part that I was supposed to do, which was to recognize what had happened, but to understand what I needed to do as far as to get out of that and to move forward.
Oh, wow, that's fabulous. That you, of course, have a story. We all have a story, but yours is one that would give anybody pause, Kimberly. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Up next, it's Josephine. So it's your turn. Let me repeat the question for you. I want you to talk about your journey in writing, right? And so since Kimberly kind of went to question 3 and 4, which is fine, I'll let you do the same thing, Josephine. Just kind of tell us about your writing journey, why you wanted to be a part of the 5th edition, a brief synopsis of what your writing was about. Yeah, and we can start there.
Okay, thanks, Donna. I think when I was in high school junior, my English teacher said to me, Josephine, you can make it as a writer. And from that point, she will always allow for me to write as much as I wanted to with each assignment. Now that was weird because everyone wanted to, if the assignment was 1 page, where everybody wanted to just barely make the 1 page, well, I would write 3 pages and could write more. So that's when I realized that I really loved writing, decided to study journalism. And of course, like I said earlier, I worked with Janis F. State Press. Life took a detour and I kind of got out of the habit of writing only what was necessary. If I worked on a campaign, it was writing speeches for the candidate that was in. If I worked on a community project and needed a press release, that was my writing experience during that period. About 7, 8 years ago, my daughters, bless their heart, lost my most prized possession. It's my grandmother's mother ring. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, if you're going to lose my ring, you will have to do this skit to say what happened to mama's ring or something like that. So from that punishment for losing my most prized possession, I started to writing inspirational plays for churches, and I always would make my daughter participate in. I think they hate plays at this point, but for the next 5 years or so, they had to participate in every one of my inspirational plays. And then a friend of mine called me one day and say, "Hey, let's write a monologue." And the monologue began with one sentence: pregnant. And 418 pages later, I had a whole novel. So now I'm all in love with writing again, and I have the time and energy to do it, I think. And so when this opportunity came along to write a second time for the anthology, I said, hey, I want to do this. I want to be a part of this. And then I struggled with what should I write, because sometimes you don't want to tell your story because it's too personal. And so now what am I going to write about? And at that point, I was dealing with my entire family was dealing with this really weird, strange occurrence in my brother's life. My brother had been a minister for more than 40 years. He developed this really out of nowhere, really terrible disease. So he's in the hospital for 2 months on a ventilator in a medically induced coma. And so I'm in this tug of war with God. I'm looking for his graces and his mercy to pull my brother out of this. I can't find it. So I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm despondent. And so that was a story that I felt like I could tell and let people see what happens on the other side when you go through this hard time. So I called my brother and say, listen, I want to tell your story. Now you don't know my brother, but he's a very private person. And I thought I would be in this fight with him to tell his story. He said, yeah, tell it. So I started writing, thinking about every day that he was in the hospital. It was a chapter, more, let alone a short story. It was a chapter, just how you deal with this. The brother who had been so agile, so active in his life and his ministry, now he's in a Beverly Hills hospital and he doesn't even know his name. He can't speak, he can't walk, can't talk. So I wanted to tell that, but then I wanted to keep his integrity intact. But out of all of this, I think my brother became an open book. And so he gets up in the pulpit and he tells his own story. And I say, well, if you're going to tell it, I can tell my perspective of it. And so that's how we ended up in this anthology this time. But fortunately, he's much better now. So maybe that's another chapter to write.
You know, I had a hard time keeping it to 2,000 words. Did you have a hard time?
Well,
I just wanted to go on and on and on.
I always overwrite. So,
right.
But yeah, keeping it down, I end up keeping it under 2,000, barely, but I made it because there was so much that I wanted to say.
Yeah, right.
And
once you made up your mind to talk about it, right? Your cup runneth over. You were just kind of wanting to spill it all out.
And that he was so free with allowing for me to tell what I was feeling in those 2 months that he was in the hospital. Yeah, but I finally managed to get it down, but it was a challenge.
Thank you, Josephine, for sharing that. You're up next, Janet.
Okay.
Okay. So let me give you the questions again.
Okay.
Right. So tell us about your writing journey. You gave us a little bit about how you met Janet's and started writing. You have an upcoming novel and a poetry book, right? So the first question is, why did you want to be a part of the 5th edition? First question. Second question, tell us about your upcoming novel and your poetry. And third, did you have a hard time keeping it to 2,000 words?
Okay, well, I did not.
Oh, and a brief synopsis about, I don't want you to tell the story, but just a brief synopsis about what you talked about.
What I talked about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, okay, I've forgotten the order again.
Okay, that's all right. Let's do it again. So you're going to talk about your journey.
Yes.
And why you decided to be a part of the 5th edition.
Yes. Okay. All right. So my journey is continuing. I think I was born to be a writer. I don't know how many people say that, but I think I was born with a writer's soul. But I was born into a household that didn't care anything about writing or reading books. So I considered myself a Cinderella in my own family. There was my mom and my dad. I had 2 sisters and 3 brothers. And a lot of times when they would be outside playing, I'd be inside reading or writing. So I've been really writing all of my life. But when I hit 12th grade, and had to go off to, I went off to college, and I threw away everything I had ever written because I needed to get a job. I needed to do something that was going to take care of me. And writing was not it. Writing was not encouraged. But I kept writing. I've always journaled. And I realized looking back on it that I did a lot of writing to God. I consider those prayers. I would write in my journal, and I would always write to God and, say, God, this is happening. Didn't ask why, but this is happening. And it was my way of dealing with what was going on in my life. And I wanted to be a part of Janis's anthology because I have stories. I mean, I think we all have stories, but I have stories that I've lived. I think I came here to live these stories and then to write about them because somebody, not everybody, but somebody needs to hear those stories. And I've gone through a lot, as lots of people have. And I've dealt with it by writing about it and listening to what God has had to say to me about certain things. I lost my mom to cancer when she was 53 years old. And I had a real hard time dealing with that because she was a Christian. She sang in the choir every Sunday. And I watched cancer eat her alive. And I thought, okay, God, what is this?
You
why?
take a pillar. You take a pillar. What about me? What you gonna do with me?
Yeah, well, yeah. And then I lost my father 2 years later. He died. Heart stopped on him 3 times. They couldn't bring him back, so he died. And then what really made me say that I've got to write is I lost my 22-year-old son in 2009 to a hit and run accident. And I thought, okay, God, I don't know what to do with this. I really don't know what to do with this. So I tried to write about it, but I couldn't write about it back then. I could not write about it when it happened. And I thought, well, if you don't write about it, you're going to forget it. But I couldn't. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't write about it. That's what the novel is about. It's a memoir. I have to tell this young man's story. And I feel like now I'm in a place, I think I'm in a place where I can tell it. I don't know. When you're writing, how things come up when you're trying to write a story. But I went back to school. I'm getting a master's degree in creative writing because I want to write the best. I want to write this the best that I can. And I felt like I needed to go get the degree just for me, because I do suffer from imposter syndrome, and all of the voices jump in and say, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? You're not a writer, so I have to deal with all of that. And part of my way to deal with it was, okay, I'm going to go get this piece of paper that tells me I'm a writer, that'll make me feel better as I write my story. But that's what the book is going to be about. The book of poems that happened during this pandemic, all of the stuff that happened during the pandemic, and it started when George Floyd was murdered. I remember writing a poem. It was 5 pages long, and I started writing it in February, and it just came from nowhere. It just came, and it just kept coming. And I was writing and crying and writing and crying, and it took on a life, all about the things we've gone through during the pandemic, how I survived it. And that's what my story is about. The story is about being thankful for these gifts. In the midst of all of this that went on, I felt like there were so many gifts to my life. People, Janis came, she was a gift. I met a friend of Janis's who's also a gift. My family, their gifts. And I write about that. And I didn't want to leave anybody out. So I was kind of scared to start calling names because so many people have poured into me, have helped me to be where I am and to be okay with it, kind of, because I'm still at 67, this terrified little girl who's afraid to put herself out there because people do judge, they do come for you. When I first told a friend of mine that I was going to school to get my master's, the first thing she said was, well, what are you going to do with it? I mean, because, I'm old. I'm 60. I was 65 at the time. And it was like, well, what are you going to do with it? Why? Basically, she was asking me, why am I wasting my time going to school? What could I possibly do with this degree? And I finally got to a point where the answer came that I'm doing this for me. I'm purely selfish at this point. I have raised my children. I have worked and retired, and now I'm doing something for me. I have stories that need to be told. Even if nobody, you know, if they never get published, if nobody ever reads them, but the one person that needs to hear it, then that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Oh, that's fabulous. And yes, going back to school is something that you have to think about 1, 2, 3, 4 times before you decide to do it. But if you're doing it for yourself, that's the only reason you have to have, right?
Yes.
Any other reason is immaterial, because
Yes.
that's something that you want and you need for your life, right?
Yes.
Those things, people call them bucket lists. I don't like that word. I don't like that terminology. I like to use my life list. Things in my life that are on my list to do. And that's one of yours. And I congratulate you for, you know, going forward with it. It's not for the fainted heart to go back to school, because you're the oldest one there in the room.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
And when I graduate, it's a 3-year program. I'm probably going to take 4 to do it. I will be 70 years old when I complete this degree. And I told my advisor, I said, I know it's not dignified. I said, but I'm going to skip across the stage to get that degree. I'm just letting you know now. I'm going to skip, you know, at 70 years old.
Make sure you call the whatever Black newspaper you have, so they'll be there to cover it, because it's historic. A lot of people don't do it. They don't take the time to go back to school. You know, I mean, I've thought about it several times, but yeah. So I take my hat off to you for doing it, and I do hope that the journey is complete soon. So the next question is, you've been published, Kimberly. Josephine, you've been published. Janet, we'll come back to you. Okay. Kimberly, tell me about we have so many young writers out here. Talk about your publishing experience and what you went through to get where you are. I think I took you, take yourself off. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. For me, it was a little bit easier because the person that published me was the individual that had initially hired me to illustrate her book. So it kind of was a exchange. You know, I'll illustrate your book for you, and then in return, you'll help me to, you know, you'll edit my book and publish it for me. From there, I worked on books where the individuals, authors already had publishers. And then from there, I decided I'm going to publish my own stuff. So I've become a self-publisher. And then the books that I work on, the book that I will be done with in the next 2 weeks, it'll go up under my name under Law Scribe Publishing.
So Janice, this is, I'm going to ask you that question too. What made you decide to become a publisher?
This is the story that I always tell, is that I had no plans of becoming a publisher, but God works in amazing ways. When I worked at the White House, I was going to working 10 and 12, sometimes 16 hours a day. For some reason, I signed up to take a publishing course in Virginia, which I had to catch two trains to get there. 2 times a week, I went to Virginia and took a publishing class. And my husband would ask, what in the world are you doing? Why are you doing that? I couldn't really answer him, but I knew I needed to do it. So I did. But I still had in my mind, I was not going to publish myself. I was going to be published. And so when I started on my book, my very first book, Cotton Field of Dreams, my memoir, I had people that were interested in my book. There was quite a bit of interest. And one woman who is very well known in New York as an agent was very interested, and she was the kindest one I've ever met in New York. And the only reason that I decided to publish myself at that point, because she and I had already drawn up a contract and we had talked about when the book might be published, was that she said the book wouldn't be published within the next 2 years. And my response was, I can't wait 2 years. My dad is 98 years old. This book is a love letter to my parents. And my dad is the only one living now. My mother was already gone. My dad has to read this book. He has to see this book. So I talked to my husband, we talked about it, and we decided we've got to publish it ourselves. So we created WOW Press, Writing Our World Press in Chicago. And we went around. I had gotten to know a lot of the literary people in Chicago by that time. And we created a little team of people because self-publishing isn't really self-publishing.
No.
You cannot publish a book by yourself. You have to have people to work with. You've got to have an editor. You've got to have a designer. You've got to have, it's good if you can afford a publicist, a person who can help you get the word out. You definitely have to have the printer. So there's lots of different pieces to publishing yourself, whether you call yourself a self-publisher or not. But that's what I ended up doing, creating a little team of people to help me get my books done. And that's what I did for the last, 15 years. But that's the reason that I became I call it an independent publisher, a small independent publisher.
Thank you, Janis. And Josephine, let's hear your story.
Thank you. Well, I think for me, I just wanted to get it done. I thought about publishing a book when I was maybe a sophomore in college. More than 30 years later, it had not been done. And so I end up with this product that I knew would be good enough, but there are millions of people who have a product that's good enough. So, I did all the research. I couldn't figure out what was the best thing to do. There's so much information out there, just information overload. So I finally said, you know what? I'm just gonna get it done. And this is gonna be like my third child. I have my two daughters, and this is my third child. And that's how my life is. My daughters, my book, because I just simply wanted to get it done. And so I went over to Amazon and said, let's figure out how to do this. And so I have my third child right here.
Let's see it.
And I am so excited about it. I mean, this is right up there with childbirth. And just as painful and just as gratifying probably in some ways. But yeah, this is my baby. And, there are always people who say, you could have done this or you could have done that. But just to hold it in my hand, to rock it to sleep at night, this is my baby. And it just got done for me. And I'm so excited to be able to say I did this, and I did it for me. I did it for my daughters, and I did it for everyone else out there who say, well, I can write a book. I want to write a book. Yeah, if I can do it, you can too.
Tell us how you came up with the cover.
Trial and error. I hired someone to do it for me. A year later, he had given me nothing I wanted. I paid a couple people to give me nothing that I wanted. They could not see what I saw in my book. And so one morning, my daughters were getting ready for school. I sent a message to this young man who said he could do a cover for me. I said, this is what I want. And within 15 minutes, he gave me the perfect cover after all of that money and time that I wasted. If I had met him first, I would have had it done. But it's okay because I end up getting just what I had in mind.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes you have to wait on it. I mean, we want it really fast and we want it right now. But,
I did. 30 years later, I want to publish this book. Now I got to wait another.
It's all in God's time. Whether we like it or not, it really is all in God's time. We do.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Joseph. So Janet, unmute yourself, please. I know that you're not published yet, but what is your idea? How are you going to do it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I really and truly do not have any idea. For some reason, I think God just sends the right people to my life when
they might be right here
to show up, and they could very well be right here. There's some things that I just don't try to figure out, and maybe that seems like a cop-out, but it seems like he puts people in my path when they need to show up in my path. So I've kind of not even thought about it. Right now I feel like I just need to get the book written, and then the publishing will come.
I will tell you that having some idea what you want the cover to look like is really important. So, I mean, if you could kind of try and formulate that in your mind, but you don't want that to be the last thing.
Oh, okay.
You really, you really just, because at that point you want to publish, right, Josephine? You want to publish. So, if you have some kind of idea of what you want it to look like, it really does help. So maybe someone here can help you, or of course, I have a team of people here in Florida who will help you if that's the way you want to go. So just reach out to anybody you'd like to. We will make sure that it gets done for you.
Okay.
So thank you, Janet.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, well,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we'll make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
This year at the book festival, we're going to have a kaleidoscope of poetry. Ooh. So, we're going to have an evening of poetry. The place that we're going to have it at actually has a music studio that we've never used. Wow. So we're going to turn that music studio into a spoken word studio for the book festival, and we're excited about all the young. I'm a writer, but I think people who do poetry and don't have to read it are amazing, don't you? I think they're just amazing. How do you remember all that stuff? Yeah. I could never do that. So we are looking forward to that. So thank you, Janet. And Janice, this is my last question to you, my friend. And that is, I need to know about Read, Write, Share, when, why, where, and how it's all going to happen in 2023, please.
Okay, Read, Write, Share is coming up in April. April 21st is the date. My co-founder, Iris Williams, and I have talked about whether it's going to be virtual or in person. And we are leaning toward having it virtual on the first day for the program part of it, and possibly doing an in-person event the second day. Because originally it was a weekend. It's a weekend event. But since COVID has kind of changed everything in our lives, we have been doing a one-day event. This year, I'm hoping that we can do the virtual so that all of our friends from other parts of the country and the world can join us. And then on the second day, we'll do something here in Little Rock, like an author's brunch or something like that. We are still talking about that, and I wish Iris could have joined us tonight. But you all will know soon what we decide. And it will be April 21st, and this will be our 6th one. And we are very, very excited. Not only excited, but so grateful to all the authors who have become a part of our circle and have been just amazing supporters of Read, Write, Share.
Don't you think that what I found amazing through the pandemic is the fact that, like we did it at F.R.E.S.H, that we had authors from the UK, Uganda, Sri Lanka. I mean, that is, that pivot alone opened up doors for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
To become attached to other people. But I want to know specifically, okay, so I'm reading, I'm writing, and I'm sharing, but how do I become a part of it? And what is expected of someone who becomes a part of the Read, Write, Share?
Well, you can definitely just become a participant, and we have a website, Read.Write.Share, Read.Write.Share.weekend.org, rwsweekend.org. Go there, find out what we're about, find out what we've done in the past, and see if it's something that kind of fits what you like to do. You can also become a participant of the program if you're a writer or you're a poet. We've had poets. If you're an inspirational speaker, because one of the things we did last year was to talk about the healing process of writing and poetry. And, we still need that. So that will be some of what we'll have this year as well. But I would love for people who've never, joined us before to go to that website and see if it's something that you're interested in. Email me at janis@wowpublishing.org and just let me know if you'd like to participate in some way. And if we can't get you in this year, then there's always next year. But yeah, we love new artists and new authors and new writers, always, because you bring something new, you bring something that we hadn't had before, and the audience always loves that.
Tell us about sponsorship packages.
I'm sorry. Donna,
Sponsorship packages.
Yes, we have had sponsors before. Since COVID, we have not gone the sponsorship route, but we probably this year will be back to that, and we'll be sending something out on that as well.
So that's April the 21st, 2023.
Yes, 2023.
And when you start the program, Janis, I'm really not getting the concept. So to be a part of it, I can bring something to read while I'm online, or are there workshops? Tell me what that.
We've had, when we first started out, we actually went away from Little Rock. We went to a place up in the mountains called Petit Jean Mountain. And we spent the weekend there. We spent 2 days there. And we had, the first day was like a reception, getting to know each other, talking about our journey, writing journey. The next day was actually a program, a workshop, a conference. People learned about writing. They learned about poetry. They learned about editing. We had speakers. We had a luncheon. So it's a program, and it's a workshop for writers and artists. So we have people who are on program, who are actually delivering. Okay. But what we hope people will do is become a part of the circle, come and enjoy and learn and share. There are opportunities to share even if you aren't the presenters. So it's kind of, we think it is open. It's an open feeling. Most people that come say they feel as if it was a safe space and they could share and talk and delve into things maybe you don't delve into other times. So it's that kind of a feeling.
It's really important. I don't know that people think about it a lot, but there are times when the earth stands still, but it's only just for you.
I like that.
The earth stands still, but it only stands still for you. And those are the days and the nights that you need to write about them. You know, when you find yourself in that space, it's really, really important to have a safe space, like Read, Write, Share, to talk about it.
Absolutely.
And so, ladies, we are coming on the 9 o'clock hour. I am going to ask each of you if you would like to share anything else with us, how we can get in contact with you. And I need a pearl of wisdom. And Janet, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, I'm laughing there before I unmute because I'm like, okay, pearls of wisdom. You just gave me a pearl. The earth, there are times when the earth stands still, but it only stands still for you.
Right.
I will share this because I can. There was a time when I could not have talked about this, but when my son died, the earth stood still.
Just for you.
Just for me. And I didn't understand that at the time because, you had to keep living. You had to, I had to go back out into the world. And I remember standing in the bank trying to make a banking transaction, and people around me were laughing and talking. And my mind said, why are these people laughing? Do they not know that my son has died? And that's what that is to me. The earth stands still. There are times when it stands still, but it's only for you. My world stood still, but the rest of the world kept going.
Absolutely.
That's just the way it is. My pearl of wisdom, and I keep thinking this came from Dr. Maya Angelou, but I can't find it. But I know she said, everybody has a story and somebody needs to hear it. And I can't find that written anywhere, but it's just something that I know that she said. And I've always held on to that. And that's my pearl. When I have to fight that imposter voice and all of that stuff, I have a story. I'm not the only one, Kimberly, like you said, I can't be the only person going through this. Other people have lost children. Other people have lost sons. I have a story, and somebody needs to hear that story. And the person who does need to hear it will find it, but only if I put it out there.
Right.
I do know that Maya said that one of Dr. Angelou said, don't die with your story inside you. So I'm trying not to die with this story inside me because somebody needs to hear.
Absolutely.
Story. Yes.
Absolutely. I wrote about the day the earth stood still, but only for me when I found my partner dead. It was Christmas Day. And so people were outside gathering with their friends and, you know, children on their bikes. And so it was just surreal because no one understood that I didn't even know what time it was. So I thank you for, think about that. It really is very cathartic to just make people understand that on that particular day, the clock stopped.
Yes.
Right, the clock stopped.
Yes.
So Kimberly, next, you're next. So tell us how to get in touch with you. Take yourself off mute, please. How we can get in touch with you, how we can get copies of your books, and we need a pearl of wisdom.
All right. Well, I'm under Kim Yarbrough, YARBROUGH on Amazon. Also have a website, Law Scribe, SCRIBE, Law Scribe Publishing. And then as far as social media, under the name Kimberly Forga for LinkedIn and Facebook. And then if anyone's on Instagram, the Green Oracle. But my pearl of wisdom is what I just discovered myself about 8 months ago. And it was kind of like a revelation for me that the life's obstacles, they do not possess the power to stop you. They literally only are there to slow you. And you make the decision if you want to hang out there for a moment or you want to push on. And that's as simple as it gets. That's the easiest way to get through everything. And it's simply, it's like the storms. You know, some storms come through like the ones y'all just had in Florida, ripping and destroying. And then there's storms that it's just a light mist. But you have to get out into them sometimes. But it doesn't mean it's the end of everything. And the storm's kind of like exfoliating as a shower would to your skin. So sometimes you just got to feel that rain on your face.
So thank you so much, Kimberly. Josephine, how can we get in touch with you? And leave us with a pearl of wisdom, please.
Sure. You can find me on social media, Josephine Rumph. My book is on Amazon, Broken Soul by Josephine Rumph on Amazon. You can always reach me on social media, on Facebook especially. And my pearl of wisdom comes from Proverbs 18:16. A man's gift make room for him. And if you are thinking about writing, you want to write, you believe that that's your calling, God will provide for you an opportunity to get that done. So never give up on your goals and aspirations, whatever they may be.
Thank you, Josephine. And last but not least, Ms. Kearney, we'll need your pearl of wisdom if you have one for us tonight.
I thought about this, Donna, and I threw away some. So I ended up with just wake up each morning and untie the bow, because each one of us are given gifts. God gives us that. Each one of us have gifts. And I know a lot of times we go through life and can't figure out what our gifts are, whether he overlooked us, but everybody has a gift. Our responsibility is to wake up, get up each day, untie that bow, and don't just stare at that gift. Share that gift. Do something.
Untie the bow. I love that.
Untie that bow.
Thank
Don't
you
leave that
so
gift
much.
up on a shelf.
Ladies, I cannot believe it's been an hour already. I thank you so much for your time and your gifts that you share. I thank you for being a part of the Elite 20 that made the cut for the anthology. I hope to meet you all in person one day. It has been an amazing hour. And I'd just like to leave our audience with my tagline, which is, when the lights go out and the cell phone towers go down, all you have left is a flashlight and a good book. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being in Zoom in on a fresh conversation.
Thank you, Donna.
This will be on YouTube in about an hour, hour and a half, and I will make sure that everybody gets a copy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank
Bye,
you, ladies.
everybody. Good
Good night.
night.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
Mama
you.
Tony.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Right.
Good
Night,
night.
everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good night.